Don't be confused. This is not Mel in the middle with Summer on the side. This is an extra edition of the Sophie Scholl Roundtable, where the two forbidden subjects of religion and politics intersect. And didn't you see them intersect when Norm and Sam were here? When we went off into an excursion on evolution. Well, I thought it might be good to simply follow up and have Andy and Summer here because they were watching this as Garrett and myself were with Sam and Norm talking about this aspect of creation, or I should say origins, that did not expect to go, but I thought it might be good just to debrief on what we heard. Because I just wanted to let Sam and Norm talk. And as I would listen to Sam, he would talk about common ancestor. But I thought, Sam, doesn't the evidence suggest common designer? We have a common designer. And though that's a vague term of saying God, we who come from a creation point of view say that, yeah, this world, this universe is designed, and there is a connection of commonality, not to a mere ancestor, which had far less information, but goes back to a designer who had infinite amount of information. So that's one thing I was just thinking about as we had that conversation. Anybody else want to chime in?
Well, you were talking about the what was it, monkeys or apes or something they were talking that we evolved into. The thing that I thought about that was, I mean, a couple things just with evolution is, like, the first thing I thought is there is no proof of that, really. Like, it's all inconclusive. There have been no evolutionary fossils that have ever been found. So it showed, like, all the fossils and things that we have found in the past have all shown a specific species, an unmodified species. So there's been no actual evidence of evolution through that. And, you know, you mentioned why are there still monkeys then? Why are there still apes? If a theory of evolution would make sense, then wouldn't you have evolved past what you are to the current state?
And not just
Right.
fossils. I'm thinking if evolution were true, why don't we see creatures with half limbs or creatures with fins and wings
Who are currently evolving.
in transition,
Right,
right? But we
right.
don't see this. I don't observe this at all as I use my eyes to see what's there, what is observable, what is testable. I don't see these things.
I think, one of the things that struck me during the conversation was just how many times they use the word creation or creator for something that they don't actually believe in, right? So, I mean, there's this idea that almost intrinsically, like, there has to be a creator, but we're just trying really hard not to say it. But I love the whole monkey thing and the whole mutation thing from this standpoint. It takes more faith to believe, right, that you would get a mutation that would be acceptable in both a male and a female, and they would continue that on, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to believe not only that, like one of the examples was with the hippopotamus, right, that he was using. You have to believe that not only did that mutation happen within a male, which the probability is way out there, right? It also has to happen within a female. Oh, by the way, near that male, right? And now all those probabilities are astronomical. Which one takes more faith? Right? Like, is it easier just to believe, like, a creator did this on purpose?
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing is, like, they believe that we evolved from those animals, right? And that, like, how many millions of years ago do they believe they were cavemen, right? So, like, humans that evolved then from monkeys, they say. So why in millions of years have we not evolved to something better that can live past 60, 70, 80 years? Like, we're clearly going in the opposite direction. Why haven't we evolved continuously to something better?
Yeah.
Why do we need medicine? Why don't we just evolve?
Yeah, and I think
Right.
there's something to be said about the fact that we are so far, like, hate to use the term light years, but so
I like
so,
that.
so far advanced from even the closest common ancestor that they claim we are, some species a chimpanzee.
Right.
Like, you can't just hand wave that away by saying millions of years and random environmental forces. Like,
Right.
it to me just screams intelligent design versus evolution, because
Right.
there's no animal on this planet that's even close to us in terms of reasoning, in terms of being able to change our environment, in the art and the culture and the architecture we create. If we all came from a common ancestor, you'd think there'd be someone in a fairly closer second than the chimpanzees who have yet to come
Right.
down from the trees.
Right.
Gary, I think that's a fantastic point. And as we listen to this conversation of evolution, we're not delving into science as we're going into storytelling.
Right.
I'm sorry, that's what it is. And I admit Genesis is a story. I say it's history. But when people talk about evolution of a common ancestor, they didn't see it. It isn't testable. It's not observable. It goes back to story.
But it's amazing because so many of the atheists, are constantly like, you need to prove this to me, you need to prove this to me. Yet their entire system, when it's evolution, is based on faith, what you just said.
Right.
So again, my creation story has a beginning. God said it, and it's there. The evolution story doesn't have a beginning. It has a never-ending beginning, and now they want to say, well, it's a Big Bang.
Yeah.
But even the Big Bang,
Another
there
miraculous
still
event
has to
that has
be
no
a beginning.
explanation.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Another event. It's what do they call it? The fallacy of infinite regression.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. You can't escape that without a creator, without God.
So,
Yeah.
Who wrote all the Genesis books? The Genesis creation, like Ken Ham or something?
Yep.
Right.
Right, like it's all about the science. It's all referencing all of the science, the actual documented science that all says inconclusive or we believe. Believe? You believe? This is supposed to be a scientific thing proving something, and they all say there's books and books of it documented that he compiled that's actual true fact, right? For these people that want to see proof. And all these scientists come to inconclusive. We just believe this to be true. Well, that is the definition of faith. You believe it to be true. How are you any different from us if you're a scientist saying, well, we can't really say, but we believe this to be true just because we will not accept the answer of God. That's
Right.
it. That's the only reason. It sounds crazy. It makes no sense, but we will not label it God.
It goes back to presuppositions and assumptions more than it does science.
Right.
And I feel like we have a whole system of education built on a mere assumption.
Well, again, isn't that the purpose, right? So we go back and we know that the enemy takes truth and he twists it just a little bit. But that question, always we go back to that question in the garden. Did God really say? Isn't that not what they're really questioning?
Yep.
The whole thing is about, evolution is about questioning, did God really say?
Yeah.
Is it really about God? That's the basis of the whole
Because
thing.
God said he did it.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, here we got the same facts. Like Ken Ham says, we don't have different facts, we have the same facts. In fact, look at this book. It's a fact this book is here before you. It's about interpretation of the facts.
Absolutely.
Is this fact owned by a pastor who has used this Bible over and over again, or was this Bible an atheist Bible, or in the hands of an atheist who got really fed up with it and just tossed it all around the room and wrecked it up and then decided to put tape all over it to bind it back up? Which interpretation is correct?
Yeah, good
Exactly.
See, and I'll just say, this is my Bible. It's been well used since I received it back in the 1990s. But this fact of a Bible has to be interpreted regarding what you see as tape all around the binding.
I think it's funny now because, from the atheist evolution point of view, they're constantly asking you to prove, where's the proof, where's the proof, where's the proof? But their whole thing, like you've said, their whole philosophy is based on not being able to prove it, and they ask us just to believe it.
Same
And so-
thing.
like, how crazy is it that they're constantly in our face saying, "Where's your proof?" And when we say, "Where's your proof?" Well, it's evolving. It's like we're going to get there eventually. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Why is that okay for you and not for us?
Right. Yeah, I mean, science is about evidence, right? And I think there's evidence on both sides. It's just the fact that secular culture wants to see evidence for what they want to believe, and they want to believe that we're all stardust and we're just in this for this life, and there's no consequences and no judgment at the end. And that's really inconvenient versus going with the other side, that there's just as much evidence, if not more, that a supreme being created us, isn't in charge of this whole universe, and someday we're going to face him after we die.
Yeah, well, isn't it funny that Jesus said, like that's the way it was going to be when the leaders of the Sanhedrin, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, when they came to him and they were like, "Give us proof, show us miraculous signs," and he's like, "Well, there isn't going to be any, and even if there was, you're not going to believe it anyway."
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Jesus
Clearly.
went, well, like there are people that keep wanting proof, but they're not believing.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's around them every day, and it's funny, like the proof thing. I was thinking when we were watching last week. If you want proof, when these scriptures were written, you can find proof of when they were written. How do you explain away all the prophecy, right? How do you explain away 2/3 of this, right? And how much of it has come true, future, since it's been written? Like, what do you say to that? You
Right.
know? Like, coincidence?
You have that element, and two, just the history that's in Genesis. Because when I read Genesis chapter 1, what does it say over and over again? Reproduce after their kinds.
Ah, right.
Well, if it's going to
After
make
its
that
own
kind of
kind.
statement, then I'd better be able to see it as I observe creation. And what do I see? Reproduction after their kinds.
It's
Right.
funny. Sunday had a baby calf born. I did not wait for that moment, so I was right there. I helped pull the calf out of the cow, and I was not wondering if it was going to be a pig or a horse.
Right.
I knew it was going to be a calf. I knew
Right.
it was going to be just like its mom, right?
Not
just
like
its dad.
one leg, half sort of
Yeah,
a wing,
no.
like it's
Right.
Can those things happen? Like, sure, I would have loved a Pegasus cow.
I know.
But it didn't. It didn't. I was not sitting there questioning what's this going to come out as. And in
Yeah.
evolution, it's almost like that. Like every birth is like, hey, is it going to be something different?
Right.
But it
type
never
of
is.
thing.
But it never
It
is. That's
never
the
was.
thing.
there are mutation things go wrong in fetal development stuff,
Absolutely.
but there's hardly it's hard to find any that are advantageous
Yes.
mutations.
Well, and guess
Correct.
what? If my cow spits out a two-headed calf, right?
It's not advantageous.
She doesn't look at it and go, "Oh, that's cool. I think the next time I'll do the same thing."
Right,
Like,
and that cow
no.
doesn't make more two-headed calves. It's not
right.
like
That cow doesn't
nature
probably
corrects
survive.
itself because that's why it's called a mutation.
Yeah.
because it's an abnormality. Well, that was almost like you have. It's an abnormality. It's not going to continue that way.
Right.
And Garrett's
happens
right.
once or
Most likely,
twice.
the cow's not making it out of birth if it has a
Right.
two-headed calf, right?
Right.
The cow's going to die. So it's not going to continue on. Both things are going to die. So there's this concept of, and again, when I look at nature tends to not like differences. So if an animal population has a deformed, right, animal, like they boot it out.
Or they eat
don't
it.
they don't keep it and go like, this is cool.
Some eat their young.
Right.
Right? Like it's not
They
normal.
see it's defective and they eat it.
Right. Wow, that's another good point. This is the way I was indoctrinated in school, because didn't we always hear about the evolutionary tree?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
The
The picture on
evolutionary
the
tree.
wall.
The picture on the
Yes.
wall. And
The ape getting taller and more thumb-like.
right, the evolutionary tree. And for me as a youngster growing up, that was science.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't science. It was a philosophy. It was a
Right.
worldview.
Right.
And I never thought about it while going to school, but did find out about it as I would listen to Ken Ham. Did everybody think of a creation orchard?
Yeah.
The orchard. What we have is not an evolutionary tree, but an orchard of all kinds of animals, creatures that reproduce after their kind.
Yeah, and again, there's some pretty neat things. A friend of mine was just got a little zebra, right? and he's looking forward to breeding the zebra with some miniature donkeys, right? Those are like kind though, and it's going to be a zebro, right? We have a name for it because people can do that,
Yep.
Yeah.
right? Like there are some neat things. My mom just showed me lilacs. She has white lilacs, purple lilacs. They growing right close together. So now she has purple lilacs with this really cool white outline around the whole thing. They are beautiful, but she knows exactly how it happened.
Yeah.
Right? Like this wasn't the purple lilacs decided, let's go white too. Like no, they were together and it happens. It's a natural process
Yeah.
that
And
God says is okay.
you look what we dogs.
Yeah.
You know, there's
Right.
all different kinds of dogs, from little teeny tiny ones to big ones, but they're all dogs. If you take their genetic information and put it through whatever sequencer, it's all basically the same. The only
Canine.
variance is size and length a little bit.
We could argue whether little dogs are real dogs or not, but
Yeah.
they are.
Hey,
The
hey,
DNA,
hey.
the DNA
No,
says that
I have
they
a little
are.
dog that's definitely not a real dog. She wears sweaters.
And we, as individuals who believe in the Genesis account, we recognize there is change. There is variation within a kind, not from kind to kind, because those who attack the creation account will say things such as, oh, you don't believe in change.
Yeah.
No, we believe in change within a kind,
Sure.
not from kind
That's
to kind.
adaptation.
Yeah.
Adaptation,
Yeah,
exactly.
God gave us
Evolution.
adaptation, so
Yep.
different
Yep.
well, the same animal can survive in a variety of conditions. That's
Right.
amazing. That to me is more evidence of an intelligent design than it is evolution. To create different species that can survive and thrive in a wide range of environments, and even through generational changes, change their size in shape to fit the environment.
I mean, even humans. I mean, if you're born in Antarctica,
Yeah.
you live there for 50 years, and you move to Miami. I mean, is that not the same? Like, you still have to adapt.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
What an incredible creator that created us with that ability.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So we didn't have to wait for millions of years of mutations to go from Antarctica to Miami.
Right.
Right? We have a creator who knows and said populate the earth and made it so that we could do
Adapt.
that. Right? So that we could adapt.
Yeah. And I think we see that as we're dialoguing with those who do not believe in God and those of us who do believe in God, I think we see God's connected to everything. Meaning, God is relevant to what we believe, not only with respect to science, but government. Whereas I think Sam and Norm would admit this, what they don't believe in God is totally irrelevant to what they think about their politics.
Yep.
I can't compartmentalize God merely to the church and say, oh, God is irrelevant to politics.
Right.
Well, and again, we talk about, down here, we talk about Christian circles all the time, does your doing, influence your being, or does your being influence your doing, right? Compartmentalizing comes when you're just doing things, right? I'm just doing politics, now I'm doing family, now I'm doing church, now I'm doing this. But when you're being, which is what God created us to be, it's everywhere, right? I think about that often with animals. I can train my horse really, really well, but at the end of the day, it's a horse.
Yeah.
And I can't take the horse out of the horse. And so there are times when it's just going to be a horse. Like when it gets stung by a bee. Like, it's not going to go, oh, shoot, there's a person on me. I can't, buck and run away. No, it's going to say,
it's gonna do what
I'm
it
a
needs to do.
horse.
Yeah.
I'm going to buck and I'm going to run away.
It hurts.
Right?
Yeah.
Regardless of who's on me and what kind of bit they have in my butt. That's the way that it works. It's just because it's who they are. And I'm with you, Mel. I listen sometimes to those conversations, and it's just compartmentalizing. Here's what I believe here. Here's what I believe here. Here's what I believe here. That's just not how we are.
But I completely agree with you. They're just saying they're compartmentalizing it. They're not, you can't actually, right? Like, I've talked to couples who were like, the husband's a Republican and he married a feminist liberal. And I'm like, how's that gonna work?
Yeah.
And people are like, well, it's just politics. I'm like, no, because when you have a baby or she gets pregnant and she wants to just have an abortion and you're like, absolutely not. Well, now your politics come into, because your politics are based on your morals. which is even what Norm and
Sam
were saying, right? They mentioned morals, and I thought, well, where do your morals come from?
Exactly.
Like, where does your moral code come from if it's not here? And then, well, if you say that this is not relevant, then how can you say your moral code is right? And how is his wrong? So if we all have our own moral code, then isn't that just like an entire society of chaos? Because you cannot say that someone else's is wrong if you are not basing it on anything except what you feel.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And I think, Summer, you've given us a conversation piece for the next time we talk with Norm and Sam. And I think they'll come back and share it. And we'll continue to do this in a very civil kind of way where we'll just dialogue and share with one another, hear each other out, points of view be expressed. So anybody else got a comment? Thoughts to add?
I would just say, no, on behalf of Drash Ministries, thanks for doing this kind of stuff, because it really was drashing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You had totally different points of view. And again, they were able to sit down and nobody stormed off and left, right? Nobody got upset. But it was definitely opinionated. Definitely, you could even call it heated at moments of just, I really believe this. But well done on drashing it out.
Yeah.
And
Things people are scared to do. So.
Yeah, and we shouldn't be afraid.
No, it's
to
great.
do
We
it.
need to do that more.
So, all right.
Awesome.
Well, great. Wasn't it great having Andy and Summer on the set as well for the Sophie Scholl Roundtable? Been looking forward to this time, saw the opportunity, and maybe someday we will have Mel in the middle and Summer on the side. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for joining us.